Does this work? Okay. Welcome, everyone, and good morning. I'm Sarah Eisen from CNBC. Thrilled to be here again this morning at the Aspen Ideas Festival. We've got a terrific panel of brilliant women here. We've got Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is the founder and CEO of Bumble, and we've got Jessica Alba, who is an actor and the founder of The Honest Company. You've got fans.
I love the alcohol wipes.
Oh yeah,
they're the best.
I like the baby wipes. I'm sure you hear it all the time. So we're here to talk about mission-driven companies and sort of values and what you guys stand for. But I think it might be good if you can both share your stories, since you're both founders of these companies, of how it came to be. Just sort of the Cliff's Notes version, Whitney, of when you started Bumble and what led to that.
Sure. So first of all, hi, everybody. Great to see everyone. I was 25 years old, and I was leaving a very fast-paced, very wild startup 2 years at another dating app. And when I left, I became the subject of a lot of internet hate. And I was completely disturbed by the fact that you could be in your bedroom and getting attacked by so many people at once. And it completely shuttered my entire life. And I just, long story short, wanted to find a way to fix that. I wanted to figure out how we could build a product and a platform with my experience to do things a bit kinder and a bit more polite online, so that we wouldn't just keep exploiting people all day long everywhere they turned on their phones. And so that was really the driving force of what Bumble would become before it even went into dating. It was really about how do we change the course of how people treat each other online. And long story short, as all things go, I was essentially talked into doing it in the dating category, which I fought back against for a long time, given I didn't want to go back into dating. But then I kind of had this aha moment and thought, wait a second, connecting is so broken for women. Women have to sit back and wait to be approached. This is 2014, so I know things have changed a bit now. And actually not really, given the atrocious last week that we've had.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But ultimately, I realized that as women, I was sitting around, couldn't send the first message. I'd be shamed by my friends if I talked to a guy first. And I had this moment where I said, wait a second, we're going to do a dating app with kindness at the helm, but women have to go first. They will have to start the conversation. So you can imagine me sitting in a room with a bunch of male engineers saying, hey, we're building a dating app and women have to talk first. And they're like, no, nothing will happen. We can't start a company where there's no interaction. But long story short, it worked. And so that was really the beginning.
Jessica, you also started Honest based on an experience that you had, right, as a mom? I remember reading about the rash and the detergent. Tell us the whole story.
Yeah, mine was really centered around kind of an aha moment, similar to Whitney's. I was 26 and pregnant with my first child, and the only mom I knew was my own. And she, would recommend things for me to use and habits I needed to change. And one of them was swap out your detergents, and you have to use something that's specifically for babies. And I was like, why? What's different about this? And she's like, trust me, I've done this. And I'm like, right. And so I used it, and I actually, while I was 9 months pregnant, had an allergic reaction to this laundry detergent that was marketed to wash baby clothes. And I was like, I called my mom, and I suffered from allergies and asthma, and I spent a lot of time in my childhood in hospitals with complications around this, weeks on end even, and it was very isolating for me. And so I just got this sort of like flood of memories that I think I tucked away until that moment, and I looked at my belly, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was like sneezing, and nose red and my eyes tearing and a rash, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having this type of reaction and I'm an adult. Imagine if my little baby is having a reaction. How can she talk to me about this? And what if her throat closes and she can't communicate that to me? oh no, I have to keep her alive, and I freaked out. So I called my mom, and I was like, you're nuts, I can't believe you recommended this. And she was like, you're hormonal. And she was like, I was just trying to do what's best for you. Call me back when you're done raging. And I was like, whatever, Mom, I'm gonna Google what's inside of this. And so I went and I Googled and I learned about just all of these untested and potentially harmful chemicals that are not only in baby products that are marketed to babies or pregnant folks, but everyday products that you interact with all day long. And it's not even necessarily like one exposure to this chemical, said chemical. It's multiple exposures to these same chemicals that are in all of these products. And I learned about how, and did research around, various illnesses from cancers to learning disabilities to obviously complications with asthma and allergies, and just sort of like the chronic exposure over time, what happens to you, and how there's hundreds, even thousands of chemicals in the cord blood of mothers to the babies. So babies are now born into this world with all of these compromised immune systems. We didn't grow up with, say, peanut allergies weren't like a thing, right? And now you can't take a peanut butter sandwich to school, right, for your kids. And that's just one of many things that kids are so allergic to because, again, they're coming into this world with these compromised immune systems. So I was like, why aren't there better, sort of rules around this? And I went and I learned that, Europe, for example, has to test chemicals for safety in use in a product before it's allowed to be brought into the marketplace. Common sense, right? And so at the time, there were over 1,100 chemicals that were banned in personal care alone. And in our country, it was like 10 or 11, literally. And I was the face of a global beauty brand at the time. And I learned about, the products that I was the face of and selling in the United States was formulated totally differently than the ones that they were selling in Europe. And I just was thinking about sort of like all the implications around what that could mean for my unborn baby, other unborn babies, and then just generations of people who are finding themselves in situations with illnesses that they're not genetically predisposed to. The other thing is my mother had cervical cancer when she was 22 and had a full hysterectomy. And she had 2 kids at that point, and it was not genetic. Her mother died of a cancer as well that was also not genetic, and so did her grandmother and her aunt. All of my aunts had full hysterectomies in their 30s. And so I was just like, what the heck is going on? And I needed to try and do something about it. So I went and lobbied for chemical reform and learned that, our political system loves to politicize health. Shocker. And I was asked, is this a liberal or a conservative agenda? And I was like, it's a human agenda. We need to protect people. And they were like, well, the voters don't really care about it. It's just not something that we can really care about. And I was like, noted. All right, so I'm going to take this sort of social justice issue and try and make it consumer-facing, because if consumers can figure out that they can raise the stakes and ask for better ethical practices, then the companies are going to be forced to raise the bar for themselves. And the industry, that's really the only way the industry is going to change, if money is at stake. So I wanted my I never started, obviously I was an actress, and I'd never been an entrepreneur, but I was like, I need to just create the solution. So I spent 3.5 years trying to convince people to get on board. I got a lot of people looking at me sideways and said, it's just too big of an idea and there's no way. I finally, relentlessly pursued an entrepreneur that really had built the first subscription business model, and I figured out how to plug products into this subscription business model that really had never been plugged into a subscription before, and it was around everyday detergents, baby diapers and wipes, and personal care. And so we launched with 17 products, and you know, I still lobbied again for chemical reform, and we got a little, you know, it got slightly better, but at the end of the day, I really felt like if there's no one who's going to kind of create the solution for folks, and what's keeping me from creating the solution myself, and I can be the case study. And when I launched the company 10 years ago, it was really looked at as like niche health and wellness and something that's good for the planet. Like,
now they all do
that's cute.
Yeah.
And that's for hippies or like moms or whatever. And now it literally is the marketplace. This is where all of the growth is coming from in basically every single category.
Yeah. So one thing that's common about both of your stories is you created companies with a purpose and motivated by your experience, and you went up against the big company, big guys, P&G, Kimberly-Clark. They were all in this business. Your old company that you worked for, Tinder. So how did you deal with that and some of the resistance that you faced, whether it was from investors and access to capital, or just general reception, which it sounded like you both were called nuts? Whitney.
You want to go first?
I'm sure you both have answers on that.
A really good husband who's here, and really good friends. And I think I've trained myself to be motivated by people that say no, and create energy from that, because if you don't flip your perception on that, it will swallow you, right? You can get really dissuaded. I'm sure you've gone through this as well. So I just retrained my brain from day one. Every time I got a hurtful email or tweet or some investor telling me it was stupid, I just got really excited by it and was like, okay, cool. And that's really been the way I've had to treat the detractors. And I think, truly, and you've experienced this, and a lot of people have seen this, if something was already done, I mean, people don't say no if it's not a big idea, right? And so you have to get excited about that as well. People generally don't know how to see things that don't exist yet. Right. And so you just have to believe in yourself.
Who said no? Investors?
Everybody. Who didn't say no? Actually, it was really interesting. When we went public, we received some really profound notes, and Robbie, who's here and has been with me for 6 years at the company, was sending through all these notes from even a lot of journalists who were like, wow, I thought this was such a stupid idea in the beginning, and I regret that. And so, this came from really reputable people, and people that had more experience and more knowledge than I did as well. And so it's just part of it. And I love to share this with young women when they're setting out to start a business. They say, I'm so beat down, I'm so bummed, like it's not working, everyone says it's not gonna work. I'm like, you probably have something special then, because if everybody thought it was going to work, it would have already been done. And so that's really how you create a gap in the market for yourself. That's how you go and do something new.
Sounds like you faced similar no's along the way.
Oh yeah, and they did everything they could to take me all the way down.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, you dealt with some big controversies.
I mean, and they worked really hard at that one. And I actually had imposter syndrome, and I had a lot of self-worth issues, and I thought that I needed to surround myself by men to be looked at as credible. And the more I've leaned into, well, first of all, I think when no one expects you to be successful, there's kind of nowhere to go but up. And so that is kind of like the fearlessness maybe that I was born from, and how I operate. And then I think, like Whitney says, if it's been done before, then you're not doing anything that probably needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And I figured out how to sort of like take the lessons or the challenges as a moment for me to get better and to iterate and to pivot. And I only got stronger and better through every challenge. It sort of set me up for the next milestone. And I had to also shift my mentality around the challenges. It just can't break you down, and it has to be almost fuel to move you forward and to get get what you need to get done.
I want to talk about going public because you actually both went public just within a few months of each other, February 2021 and May 2021, both to great fanfare. What was that process like, Jessica, going through that, and what's it been like since?
It was wild. It was kind of an out-of-body experience, I think, because...
It's a good way to explain it.
Right? It was...
Why? What do you mean?
I think, well, just a stat that's interesting is like between 2013 and 2020, out of over 2,000 companies that went public, only 18 had a female founder or CEO. So I think that in itself is like, we are nowhere to be seen. And you can walk down those halls, and it's just photo after photo after photo of men, just all the dudes.
The roadshow, the whole thing.
And the roadshow and all of that was bizarre because it was like all virtual, and then, because it was COVID. Right. But ultimately, I think just knowing kind of the lives that we are changing by being up there on that stage and showing, for me, people of color and little girls or women who were constantly told that you are not enough, that you are not equal, that you don't deserve fairness, to see that there's like some light for them to look towards, just how meaningful that is. And so I think that to me is really what hit home the most.
What was it like for you? Okay, a lot of applause.
Said it perfectly. No, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. I think that I don't know if anyone truly, until you're in the shoes of going public, can really understand just how hard it is.
Oh, God.
I think it looks like, oh, you like get a cute outfit and stand on a podium and like confetti falls and like you're public, but really.
By the way, both of your stocks had a really good first day.
Yeah.
Pops.
Yeah, that was awesome. But it's really hard to get
even to that point.
To a point where you can even say the word, we should go public. It's so difficult. And I think to your point, I love that we got to that finish line because it shows so many other people that you can do it. But what makes me sad is all the women along the way that got halted, right? Didn't quite make it that far because it's really difficult. So
don't you feel like we should reinvent that business model?
Probably,
on
yes.
how to
Yeah. Let's do that. Why don't we do that in our spare time?
Seriously.
That's a great idea.
It needs to be streamlined.
It does. But I mean, it was crazy. And to be in the COVID world, both of us, maybe it was a nice thing that we didn't have to go to 6,000 meetings. Yeah. But no, it was really wild. But I think it's very exciting to see so many women, not even just the two of us, that took companies public in the last couple of years. I think that this will change the game. For me, the thing I'm most excited about is the narrative shift. So when we started talking to bankers and investors about potentially going public, everyone was like, oh, this is cute. Yeah, like this woman thing, this is me cute. But then it becomes real, right? And then it becomes something that people really understand that drives good business. And so what I'm so excited about is, to your point, it's no longer a niche thing to focus on doing better for women. This is becoming normalized, and it's becoming something that, everyone can take seriously. And I think if we keep proving that time and time again, it won't be, to your point, some niche carve-out audience, the moms or the whomever. We are the ones that make the world go round, right? And so that's been exciting, but it's definitely extremely overwhelming to be a public company, right?
Yeah.
But also this period has been really bumpy. Both stocks have come well off.
I mean, it's COVID. It's every issue is everything's sort of like rising to the top, and it feels like there's a reckoning in every area, and it's hard.
Yeah, I think I don't know what you've been doing, but what I've been trying to do is I just really remember that that's not the right number to watch, right? That's not the right metric to pay attention to. It's how is the health of your business? Yeah. How is the health of your team? Mm-hmm. Are they okay? Are they hanging in there? Are they feeling inspired and motivated? And how can we focus on just continuing to drive impact, right? Are people finding value from the products? And that's ultimately, over the long run, what makes a stock successful, right? And so it's life, though. There's daily volatility in everything. It's the big picture. It's what you're trying to get up and achieve, what you're doing in the morning, right? What goodness are you trying to put into the world?
And then how much you want to play the short game versus the long game. I mean,
Priorities.
Thinking about sort of like, what is your mission? And are you driving that mission forward every single day? For us, it's our mission, and it's also innovation, and it's continuing to move the needle, because if we don't do it, no one else, there's no one else doing it, right? And no one's going to do it quite like us. And so it's important that we continue to stay on course and not let the outside world kind of distract us from our mission.
Well, speaking of the mission, you're both obviously female empowerment stories, and that's part of your value system. We've got to talk about the Supreme Court. On a positive note, I think as we speak this hour, Ketanji Brown Jackson is being sworn in to the Supreme Court. First female African American. But Whitney, you have not been shy about this topic. You called the decision last week devastating.
Yeah.
How are you handling it as a business and as a CEO?
Well, it is devastating.
Yeah.
How can we put all politics aside, again, to your point of even politics, how can you tell a woman that she does not have control over her own body? You know, that this is just, it's more than devastating. And I started this company in 2014 to quite literally give women more control over their relationships. How could you possibly have a woman in control of her relationship if she doesn't even have choice over her body? And that's really everything we've been doing over the last 7 years of being a business is how can we put women in control of their lives? How can you expect a woman to have a healthy, equitable, and flourishing life if she doesn't even sit on equal terms in her own relationships? It's almost impossible. She's set up for failure across the board. And when we disempower women, we disempower societies. We disempower the entire world. I mean, women are raising the future generation, and we cannot go backwards. And the fact that we're sitting here, and here you have two women that have taken companies public, and all these things are changing, and things are going, in certain places in a better direction, it just feels like such a step back.
Oh my God.
Are you speaking out about it, Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, personally, as a woman and a mother of girls, it's like, so I actually can't even believe that this is the world we live in. Like, it's just unreal that we have to fight for fairness at this basic level and human decency of our own healthcare and our safety needs. And we deserve comprehensive healthcare, period. It's a human right. That's it.
I cover at CNBC, we've been getting all the responses from big businesses to this decision, and very few of them are taking a position. A lot of them are saying that we're gonna cover travel expenses for our employees. We're gonna help insure them so that they can get access to reproductive services, but they're not saying we're coming out against this ruling. They're not saying we're gonna fight it. And you guys are. I mean, are you worried about the woke mob coming after you? Are you worried about Republican politics? You're based in Texas.
So again, we are true to our mission, right? We make decisions based off of our mission. We don't chase every single issue out there, which, by the way, there's a lot of issues every single day. We are core to, like what you said, giving women control over their relationships, over their choices, over their bodies. And this is one of those things you cannot ignore. If that's what you are as a business, how could you possibly ignore it, right? And we've been dissuaded over the years by a lot of people over a lot of topics. Don't get involved, don't step in that, don't step in that. Oh, we've got to accommodate everybody. But the reality is people want what is authentic to that product, to the founding story, to the soul behind what this business is operating on. And it would, in my opinion, be wrong to stay silent on something like this. And we have to take a stance when women's choices and women's freedoms are being, put at risk.
Can you do anything about it? Are you putting money, for instance, into cause? Is there an activist role as a business you can take?
So there's a lot of things that you can do. I think what we choose to do today, and that's not getting into all of the different work streams that we're currently looking into. What we do today is how can we use our platform and our product to catalyze change, to your point. the government's not going to make changes. Well, then we'll just launch products and features and let the consumers choose, exactly as you said. Right. So how can we leverage our product that has millions and millions and millions of people using the services? How can we leverage the product to actually encourage better, more ethical, kinder behavior to really ultimately, you know, give women more of a voice, to encourage women to take a stance on these topics? And then we do drive legislation, not as it pertains to this particular topic, but actually a few years ago in 2019, we could not for the lives, and this is not to go off topic and we'll come right back to this, but we couldn't understand how there was no accountability on the internet. So you have all these laws that exist in the real world. You cannot expose yourself in this room without going to jail, literally. There are laws that protect you. But online, you can do all of these things that are terrible and toxic, and no one's going to say anything, and nothing's going to happen. There's zero consequence.
This is cyber flashing?
Yes. Yeah. So we started lobbying to actually create legislation around cyber flashing, which is a real issue on the internet. And we actually were able to pass that with a unanimous yes vote with the Texas Senate. And that goes to show that the entire legislation process as it pertains to just basic safety for women, minorities, and even children on the internet is so behind the real world. And so I think that's really interesting as we look to the future is where does Bumble, as this technology business, who's kind of the opposite of a lot of technology businesses, right? A lot of technology businesses are out there lobbying to exploit people more. And so if we can take this opposite approach, where can we go to protect women? And maybe, just maybe, there's an opportunity in this space, right? And so without saying too much, that's kind of how we're thinking.
How do you think about what issues Honest should step up and stand up for?
Yeah, I mean, our mission is to really inspire everyone to love living consciously, and in that, having, you know, a healthy life is paramount to that, and feeling safe and supported and cared for. And so, you know, in everything that we do, we look at areas where we can try and move the needle. And there are still like pretty like, it feels wild that pregnant women and babies are still totally exposed to known chemicals that are known carcinogens every single day, and even products marketed to them specifically. So we're working on how to really kind of better that system, and you need bipartisan support on these things in order for them to really like get anchored and to happen and to get put into place. So on that issue specifically, for us in legislation and what we try to advocate for, it's always around the health and wellness of people, the health and wellness of future generations. And that also means, you know, by us not using these certain chemicals, then they're not essentially, hopefully there's not as much of a marketplace, so they're not made. Because there's also the environment that these chemicals are made in, and all of these people who don't have the same sort of, I would say, the luxury of being able to choose where they live or where they work, and you know, they are exposed the most. Brown and black folks are exposed the most to these toxic environments, and their health is being compromised the most. And they are the workforce in a lot of these chemical companies and manufacturing companies. So if I can try and just like shift it just a little bit, it actually will make a massive impact.
What do you want to see banned? Like parabens? What should be banned?
Well, I mean, there's so many. there's so many. We have about, I mean, we choose not to use over 3,000 chemicals in our ingredient list, so we're pretty stringent. But you know, there's a list that we've identified with some folks in government. And it's pretty, you know, we were trying to be conservative at first, knowing that like there's probably one or two companies that could ever make anything for any of them, given, you know, the safety issue. And so we started at about 100 that we identified and derivatives of, but we're gonna have to obviously find a happy medium. Yeah, and it's obviously not within my area of expertise. So,
whoa. I think you're good.
So we just try to surround ourselves with people who are experts in this space who are driving the sort of like the data that can really protect people, because at the end of the day, if you can't wake up in the morning tomorrow because you can't get out of bed because you're sick, then like what is all of this even for? What are we even doing? And frankly, we're doing it to ourselves and not even realizing it. And that's what sort of really got me, was like people don't even know what they're being exposed to, and there's no real accountability on the company side to protect people or the planet.
So do you guys give to politicians that are working to advance your missions? Is that part of the playbook?
We have been very strategic about just sticking to our objectives, right? So when we were lobbying, it's not about supporting one politician over another politician. It was, to your point, getting the support of everyone to see that these are human issues. These are not agenda issues, right? Like, we're not in the business of helping certain people get elected. We want to get our personal objectives of making the internet safer, making digital connections a little bit kinder across. So we really stay in our lane of saying, how do we get this done? And what does it take that will never compromise our mission within? Because ultimately, how can you actually create change if you don't unite each other, right? You have to unite people in order to get anything over the line. And we saw that in Texas. It's not about picking and choosing who you want to associate with on that process. It's who actually has the power to get this over the line. And I'm sure you've experienced that with...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not about party affiliation.
No.
It 100% is just about, like, this is just the right thing to do. Who's on board? Who has common sense here? Mm-hmm. You know?
Why do you stay in Texas?
Well, let's see.
Because it sounds like you've been at odds with a lot of the legislation.
Listen, Texas, it's like saying, why does someone stay here or there? We can't generalize about a community or a population. Texas is very near and dear to my heart. I love Texas, and I disagree with that framework. I'm of the mindset of, if something needs to be improved, stay, get your hands dirty, and make it better. Don't run away, you know?
No, I think it makes sense, because I think businesses struggle with this issue of like how to engage in 2022 with some of these issues that there's no history and there's no playbook for doing the political and the societal issues and some of the controversial issues, and some of them do it by boycotts and some of them do it by signatures on a paper. So, and you clearly know how to engage.
Well, I'm in the relationship business. That is quite literally what we do all day. And I will tell you one thing that I can say this with full conviction. Kindness will get you further 100% of the time than anger, resentment, and animosity. And that is so true in the interactions that we build every day. You know, when you eliminate toxic behavior, everybody wins. And people actually start to hear each other and listen to each other. You cannot just exist in a perpetual state of argument. No one wins. And so I think what we're really trying to say is, hey, we're not shaming you for your beliefs, or we're not, trying to throw rocks at you because you disagree with us. We want you to hear where we're coming from. And I'm of very firm belief, and I would assume that, most of the people in this room would agree, when you make the world better for women, you actually make the world better for everyone. So no one loses. We're not trying to pick and choose who's the winner here. It's really just the quest to make things a little bit better for everyone.
Agree. I mean, I think it's why we need more women leaders of countries as well. So what do you think is most misunderstood about you and what you're building and the company?
I don't know.
Is that still an issue? Because you said
I don't really try to focus on the negative. I try to stay in the positive and what's possible, and I look to the future, not the past.
I personally love being underestimated. I think it's a total superpower. I mean, like, anyone that can be underestimated, like, you got a big star. Because truly, when people are scared of you and they're watching you, it's harder to like be in stealth mode and make things happen. So I've spent the bulk of my career with even our competitors, everyone being like, that's not a threat. We're not gonna worry about that one over there. And then all of a sudden you come up on people's corners and you're like, hey, it's like Princess Peach in Mario Kart. Like, she can still win. And so that's kind of how this has been for me, and I love it. Actually think if you can be slightly underestimated, you have a huge leg up.
I want to open it up. I know we have an engaged audience, and I'm sure we have some questions.
Yeah, have we completely?
Fans,
I mean,
we have
she has not.
someone.
I feel like we haven't engaged audience at all.
Yeah, we have one over here. And if you could just identify yourself, that she's coming with a microphone.
I'm just going to keep this light, but yesterday Hillary Clinton actually said that women will not actually achieve equality in this country without actually electing people who believe in women's rights and abortion rights. And so I'm just wondering, I mean, what do you think about that directly?
Yep.
And the follow-up is that, you know, women such as yourselves who have such huge platforms, you know, have a way to influence other women in their thoughts. But do you see it as a direct conflict with your business model to actually take a position on women's rights?
Nope.
I think we have one back here.
It's kind of hard to see. I don't know why it's so bright up here, and it's like
It's the light.
Hi, I'm a high schooler. My name is Janesa. I work with a group of other high schoolers, and we created a website that advertises affordable childcare. And I know that.
Amazing.
And I know, for Jessica specifically, I know that your company focuses on children, babies specifically, and women. And I wanted to know your advice on how to build a child-focused company, specifically for younger people.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations. I love women who build things out of like a real need that they see. Be relentless. You know your consumer better than anyone else. Let that be your light on your path. And I would say that it took me a hot minute for me to really get comfortable with trusting my gut and trusting my instincts. You know, I didn't go to business school, and I didn't take a traditional path, but I just knew what was right. And so if you just stay focused on that, you're gonna welcome all of the support and knowledge and the experts to help drive your mission forward, because you're on the right path of doing the right thing.
In front here. Okay. Oh, got.
Okay, so my name is Andrea Davis, and I'm in the process of starting a Tinder for housing.
Awesome.
And
Wait, let's reframe that. A Bumble for housing. Thank you.
And it's been pouring from me for months. And I have a lot of men around me that's trying to redirect my, I don't want to cry.
Vision.
My vision.
Yeah.
And then I'm constantly battling, who do you think you are? Mm-hmm. And I'm reminding myself that I'm the one that came up with the idea.
Exactly.
So I just wonder, how do you manage, the voices of men that try to...
And their fragile egos.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, me and my ex, I'm constantly telling him, I need you to stand down and just do what I'm asking you to do. That's what I need help in. And, yeah, it's been a challenge. So I'm just wondering, how did you know which piece of advice to take on, or which one to say, no, my gut says to go here, and to actually trust that?
Wow, that's awesome idea, by the way. So I'll let you give your advice. She probably has better advice than I do. But what I would do, let's see, in hindsight, what I wish I had done is written it all down, because it would have been chapter 1 of a very long book.
So
and
true.
So write it all down and be excited about this chapter, because there is no amazing movie or amazing book without some struggle, right? And so embrace this chapter. and you'll get through it. And just stay really convicted in yourself, because that's ultimately all any of us have at the end of the day, right? So just stay anchored and don't let anyone rock you. Be a strong boat in lots of different winds and storms, and just tune it out. And again, like I said earlier, like actually get excited by it. Like it's all on perspective, right? And if you can actually shift that perspective and say, ooh, this is kind of fun. Everyone thinks I'm not capable of this. I'll show you. And then you can kind of get energized by it, right? And call your girlfriends, lean on your people, and build that, united army around you. And then you'll stay protected.
Yeah, I mean, all of what she's saying are amazing tools, and it really feels like for me, I had to shift the context and the way that I was sort of tackling a lot of those circumstances. Instead of feeling victimized by it, I had to figure out how to get them on board with my idea. And, they sort of call it mansplaining when they do that weird talk to you, but you have to mansplain to them, and then, convince them that it's their idea. It's a very exhausting process. You really got to walk all around. And then you remind them, yes, I know you came up with this idea. Right. And isn't it good? Oh my God. And how are you feeling today? What'd you have for lunch? And you distract them, and then you bring them back.
Sounds like toddlers.
It is a lot like
this
your
is what
kids.
I'm doing with my 2-year-old
You just
right now.
bring them around, and then it becomes their idea. And then you're back and you're like, yes, great, we're doing that. And so you just can't, sometimes you can't be so overt, and maybe it's not stand down, maybe it's come along with me, and let's see what this is like. And why not try? And tell me what feels so scary about this, and get into their feels, because then it brings them into a space where you can then start to really have a conversation around what their resistance is coming from and why they're so stuck in it. And you can also probably learn a lot more about your process and yourself, and why it is so meaningful for you to get what you need to get done. So it can really kind of work in both ways. I've done a lot of therapy and I meditate. And so I also had to learn how to do all of that. But it was not easy, and I cried a lot. And it felt isolating and lonely, and you need your tribe of your homegirls and whoever you can just talk to, and they will just be there and be your support and love you.
It's really good. I think we have one back there.
Hi, ladies. Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Ashley
Hi.
Copeland. Hi, everybody.
Look
My
at your
question
fashion.
really is focused more so on the networking part. So both of you all really talked about in the beginning stages, working really hard to ask and get those people to be on board with your idea, get the right supporters, the right investors. What did you all do to even get into those rooms in the first place, to initiate those conversations?
Wow, let's see here. You want to go first?
After how many got slammed, doors slammed in your face?
So here's kind of strange advice, maybe, because I don't know if it works or not. I think it may have worked for me, but I'm not entirely sure. I realize that everyone's always asking everything of everyone, right? Everyone's always getting their inboxes full of, hey, can you help me with this? Can you do this? It's always, what can someone do for that person? And so I took a different approach early on. I had very little to offer, almost nothing to offer. But I tried to offer and be of value to these women that I knew and I looked up to. So there was a lot of these, and there was not a lot. There was maybe 4 or 5 women-founded companies at the time that were kind of in our space-ish. And I would reach out to them and be like, can I help you in any way? Is there anything I can do for you? And I think it was such a refreshing perspective, because no one ever asked them ever if there was something that they could do.
Yeah.
And a couple people actually slowly but surely were like, hey, that's really cool. Actually, I have an idea how we could work together. And so it was putting yourself out there in different ways, not just the typical, hey, what can I get from you way? Because I think people that are also in their own hustle get bombarded in that. And then all of a sudden doors start opening, right? And so it's approaching it from kind of an open-hearted, I just want to be a part of this and I want to contribute, not just what can I take. And then it's kind of like magic. The universe kind of just starts delivering. I know that might sound crazy, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, and I even do it still, you know, when I'm looking for that sort of next stage or next level advice or partnership that would be meaningful to the business. In any way, it's definitely that approach of like, how can I unlock something for you? What matters to you? And then you can kind of think through how you can fit inside of what's meaningful to them. And then, yeah, like Whitney says, it just sort of opens up.
Yeah, like a random example, I really wanted to partner with a women-founded brand that I thought they had a great audience, and I wanted Bumble to be able to, you know, be able to work together with them. And they were opening a store, and I had a cake made out of their actual logo. Like it was a life-size version of the product they sold. And it probably cost like $200, which was kind of a lot at the time. But it meant so much to them, and they were so taken aback that our brand would think of them in that way that they actually emailed us. And we ended up doing a partnership when we were itsy-bitsy, like nobodies. And so it's just random little things like that that have actually been creative ways to get your foot in the door.
I think we're just about out of time. Maybe one more for me, if we can, just because we're all moms, and I think a lot of people in this room are probably moms and business owners, and I just wonder, I mean, it's a question that men never get about the sort of like balance.
Why not?
Because, I don't know, because we're better parents.
I don't know if I'm a better parent, honestly.
No, but is there any advice or takeaways as you've gone through this journey and done that? I can't figure it out, so I'm curious.
Just do your best every 5 minutes. I mean, like it's such. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm in like newborn exhaustion land. So I don't know. But I do think that what an amazing opportunity to be part of this moment in time where women are making shit happen. I personally did not grow up in a community of friends where their moms were like out there, you know, moving and shaking.
That's true.
I think this is really exciting. I think that there's such an opportunity to show the next generation different. You and I were just talking about this. Like moms at work, that's cool. Like that teaches and inspires. But I don't really have an answer to that. Jess, you got one?
As far as balance?
Advice?
There's no such thing.
Things you've learned?
I think you have to, it's weird. It feels like the opposite, but I really think self-care matters. I think you need to like give yourself the time to like stop and to like sit with your heart and to like replenish. I feel like sometimes you feel like you need to fill all of these roles and wear all these hats and do so much, and it's draining, and it can make you sort of, you can look up one day and you're like, what just happened to the last like 5 years of my life? And I feel like a shell of myself, because you can, you know, especially as an entrepreneur, you can put so much into your work and then so much into your family, and then you're like, who am I and what do I even care about? And I think that that's not a great place to operate from. You know, I think we need to care more about what's going on inside. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to give ourselves space for that. And know that it's not even a luxury. It's just sort of like a necessity to nourish yourself and your soul. And so that is maybe the advice I would also give to men. I would give it to everyone. It also just, I think it allows for more empathy and more compassion for others. So we're not in the mode of arguing all the time. We can be in the mode of kindness and understanding.
It's really good. Ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, guys.